And make sure everyone can see and hear. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to sing a little song that you can pat your legs to. These are your drums, and you'll catch the words as we go along. Great big stars shining all over. Great big stars way up yonder. Great big stars shining all over. Oh, my little soul's gonna shine, shine. Oh, my little soul's gonna shine, shine. You got it now. Great big stars shining all over. Great big stars way up yonder. Great big stars shining all over. Oh, my little soul's gonna shine, shine. Oh, my little soul's gonna shine, shine. That's something that I learned sitting with my elders. It wasn't a Sunday school song or a church song, but my great-grandma would work in the garden. We'd get up early in the morning as the sun was rising. I spent my summers with my great-grandparents in East Liverpool, Ohio, I think to give my mother a break, because I was that kind of a child. And my great-grandma always sang, and I would learn songs from her, not knowing the background and history. Some of these were old gospel and spiritual tunes, and they would go by the rhythm of whatever she was doing in the garden, and I would do them with her. And in that song, my part was, oh, my little soul's gonna shine, shine. Oh, my little soul's gonna shine, shine. What I didn't think about was the fact that I'd have dirt all over my hands. So, oh, my little shirt was a mess, mess. Oh, my little shirt was a mess, mess. Usually by the time we were ready for breakfast, which would be brunch for some folks, I was a mess, and I didn't care. Because I was with my great-grandparents, and I had been playing in the dirt. I didn't realize I was working in the dirt. I was playing in the dirt. And one time she was singing a song about Mary and Martha. But it's not the tune that you might find in the hymnals, and her voice was deeper than mine, and she would sing, oh, Mary, don't you weep. And my part was, oh, Mary, don't you weep. Well, we got to the last part where she was saying for the last part, and Martha, don't you moan. And I was supposed to sing the last, oh, Martha, don't you moan. Well, something had happened to my brain, because I had gone to church with my grandma Josephine, who went to the Baptist church. And in those days, things were a little bit bigger in the Baptist church than they were in the Methodist church, a little bit louder, a little bit broader, a little bit stronger. So when it got to the part where I was supposed to wrap it up by singing, oh, Martha, don't you moan, I went, and Martha, don't you moan. And I just stretched that last note out. Great-grandma Essie looked at me and she said, baby, you singing a little Baptist this morning. We're Methodists. But then she started laughing. I learned my storytelling sitting knee to knee with the elders. And I ask that you hold all our children in your hearts, especially in these times. And make sure that you share stories with as many of them as you can. Storytelling is not a lost art. It has just become lesser known. And children need stories as the foundation for effective living, a good life, and community. One story I learned was about old Granny Nanny Goat, and I thought about her and all the rain that we had been having. She was the babysitter for all those little kids, because that's what they call those little goats, you know that. Mm-hmm. She had raised so many of them that they all called her Granny Nanny Goat. And she would teach them from her knowledge and her wisdom. And one day, as the older goats were doing whatever they were doing in the pen next to the barn, old Granny Nanny Goat decided to take all those kids through the forest and show them a few things. And as they walked along, she moved very slowly because, hi, come on in, because she had Arthur in her itis and rumors in her tisms, you know, and so she would keep going, go on, babies, I'm coming. And then she'd say, stop, don't eat that, you'll die. And they'd move a little bit further. Stop. Don't touch that. You'll itch. Oh, you can eat that. That's sweet. In fact, nip off a little bit for Granny Nanny Goat. Well, they finally made it through the woods to a meadow, and the grass was soft and sweet and green, covered with dew. There was clover, still sweet and growing, and little tender wildflowers. And those little kids were hopping. They weren't just walking along. They were hopping like bunnies. They were so excited, and they were bumping heads with one another just for fun. And old Granny Nanny Goat was watching over all of them when something started to happen. Something we have experienced. The wind started to blow. The clouds began to grow, and a sound came from the sky. Rub your hands together to make that sound. First softly, you remember that sound? Then a little louder, and a little louder, and a little louder. And those goats were getting soaking wet. Well, old Granny Nanny Goat tried to clear her eyeballs and her nose. And she told those little ones, babies, you know the path now. Run, get back home. I'll be coming. Well, all those little kids started running down that path, heading for home. But old Granny Nanny Goat couldn't run as fast as they could. See, she had that Arthur in her itis and the rumors in her tisms. And as she was making her way along that path, she could hardly see, because even under the trees, the rain was pouring down. And then she saw what looked like a hole in the rain, and she knew it was the mouth of a cave. And she made her way there to try to stay dry and safe. When she got in that cave, she shook herself the way dogs do. And she called out, and behind her she heard, and she turned around, and there was a young lion. Some might say a painter. Some might say a mountain lion. I'm telling the story. It's a young lion. It's easy. And he was grinning at her. Well, old Granny Nanny Goat tried to be polite. She said, good morning, Mr. Lion. And that young lion said, good morning, breakfast. Well, old Granny Nanny Goat knew she couldn't fight a lion, and she couldn't run because of that and that. But she was wise, and she was knowledgeable, and she had an idea. She'd never had to fight. She always used her head. She didn't bump heads with anybody. She said, well, Mr. Lion, I'm so glad you're here, because I was going to do some hunting for my breakfast. You see, today is my birthday, and ever since I was a little kid, on my birthday, I have always eaten a young lion. Well, that lion said, what? Oh, yes, you see, you're more tender when you're young, but I couldn't hunt because of this rain, and I have a few situations, but here you are, and I'm hungry. And old Granny Nanny Goat put on her meanest, ugliest old Granny Nanny Goat face. And as you get older, you can do that more easily. But that young lion didn't know that, and he looked at her, and she looked at him, and he looked at her, and she looked at him, and finally that young lion got down on his knees like he was praying, and he said, oh, please, don't eat me. Just let me go, please. And old Granny Nanny Goat thought about things, and she said, I'll let you go if you promise one thing. He said, anything, anything. Stop eating goats. That young lion said, "Yes, ma'am." And she stepped to one side and he ran out that cave into the rain. And he couldn't see any better than she could, so he tripped over his own feet and ran into trees and rocks, but he got as far away from old Granny Nanny Goat as he could. Finally, that rain stopped, and she walked out of that cave and made her way down the path to the pen where the other goats were thinking about looking for her, but they were so worried. She'd never been this late walking anywhere. What might have happened? Where could she be? Had something gotten poor old Granny Nanny Goat? Well, when they saw her, they got as close to her as they could. And she said, "Oh, I'm fine." But I realized something. In everything I taught you, I left something out. I need to teach y'all how to make up a good story. Now, I learned a lot from my pop-pops. My mother's father, he was a wonderful storyteller. He told a lot of tall tales, but Grandma Josephine said he was just a liar. And when he would get in trouble with Grandma Joe, he would never admit what he had done. One time he spit his tobacco into one of her fine little porcelain decorated flower pots because he couldn't find the can that he would spit in, and he had to spit. And Grandma Joe said, "Buy it? Did you spit in this pot?" Now, who else would have spit in the pot? But Pop-Pops didn't say yes, and he knew not to say no. He said, "It's a possibility." When I was 10 years old, there was a birth in one side of the family. It had happened too soon. And there was a death in the other side of the family. It had happened unexpectedly. And my mother was going to go to mind the other children in the family. The mother and father were already at the hospital, and people were taking turns just going down the hill a pace and watching over those children until their auntie could come, because she could stay with them. So my mother was going to go in that direction. My father was going to go and try to console people and start to make arrangements for this unexpected funeral. And I was to watch over my sister and brother. I was 10 years old, and I wanted to get my math homework done. But there wasn't anything wrong with me watching over them. Everybody on that part of the hill was kin or as close as family. And folks watched out for everybody. My great Aunt Catherine, Aunt Cat, lived right next door. And the houses were so close together, if you opened up both dining room windows, you could go from one house to the other. I knew that because I'd done it. And as my Aunt Cat put it, I scared the bejeebers out of her. I don't know where the bejeebers were, but when she finished fussing, I wished they'd go back so she would stop fussing, because she told me about that for days. Anyhow, what would happen would be that the dining room windows would be left open. I was to holler if I needed anything or if there was a problem. She would holler, and I was to answer. If I didn't answer quickly, my Aunt Cat and my Uncle Stafford would probably be in the house, because the back door just stayed unlocked. I wasn't worried about that. And I had a little brother. He was still what you'd call a baby, but he could sleep with an elephant stomping through his bedroom playing a trombone. And he snored like an old man. So all I had to do was check on my brother Jake. But I had to get my sister ready for bed. And that was a great difficulty. We were 5 years apart. She had her attitudes, I had my attitudes. We didn't even look alike at the time. As we got older, we all got my mama's face. I don't know how that happens. But my mother kissed me and hugged me and reminded me of everything I needed to do and make sure that window stayed open and listen for Aunt Cat or Uncle Stafford. My father gave me a pat on the head and a kiss on the cheek, said they'd be back as quickly as they could, and out the door they went. And I said to my sister Kim, "You go on upstairs, I'll come up and help you get ready for bed." And she got close to me at the kitchen table. She said, "No." I said, "Kimmy, I got to get you ready for bed. I got to check on Jakey, and I got to get my math homework done, and this is hard. Go on up the stairs." "No." "Tell me a story." I said, Kimmy, I don't want to tell you a story. Go up the stairs and get ready for bed. Well, my sister grabbed her long red braids. She had red hair like my daddy had before I made it turn gray. And she pulled on those braids the way she did when she was upset. And she opened her eyes as widely as she could, stretched her mouth like some kind of demented frog child. She said, "You tell me a story." Well, I'm sure she thought that was scary. It was just ugly. But she just kept on saying that, "Tell me a story, tell me a story, tell me a story, tell me a story." And finally I gave up. I put the pencil in my math book. I closed the book. I said, "Fine. What story do you want?" And suddenly she was cute little Kim again. She let go of those braids and she smiled sweetly. She said, "Tell me the story of the 3 bears." I said, "Fine." Once upon a time, there were 3 bears. Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and wee little baby bear, and they lived in a nice little house in the woods. She said, "That's right." And one morning, Mama Bear made porridge, like oatmeal. And she set it out on the table, but Papa Bear said, "Oh no, porridge again." Mama Bear said, "Well, when we first married, you said you loved porridge. That's why I make it every day." Can you tell I overheard a conversation that Baby Bear said, "Could we just go for a walk? I don't want to eat porridge yet." And my sister looked at me as if I had done the voices wrong. But she said, "That's right." So the 3 bears went out the front door for their walk, but they forgot to close and lock the front door. And while they were gone on their walk, along came a little girl with golden curls. My sister said, "That's right." And she saw that the door to the bear's house was open, so she walked up the steps and she went in, and she saw 3 chairs in the front room, and she tried them all out. But she broke the littlest chair into 1,000,000 toothpicks. My sister said, "1,000,000 toothpicks?" It wasn't 1,000,000 toothpicks. I said, "Shut up, I'm telling this story." She said, "Okay, that's right." And then she went into the kitchen to see if there was anything to eat, and she saw 3 bowls of something on the table. My sister said, "It's porridge." I said, "I know it's porridge." She didn't know it was porridge. Are you listening to this story? Okay. Well, she tried all the porridge, and one was too hot and one was already cold, but the littlest bowl, it was filled with the porridge and a little milk poured on it and a little cinnamon on top of that. She said, "That's right." And that little girl ate all the porridge in that littlest bowl. And you know how it is when your belly gets full, you start to get kind of tired. So she went upstairs to find a place to take a little nap. And there were 3 beds up there. And one was too hard and one was too soft, but there was one just her size. And in that bed, there was a teddy bear and a blanket. My sister looked at me, she said, "The baby bear got a blankie?" "Yes, the baby bear got a blankie." That's right. And that little girl got into that bed and she pulled up that blanket and she hugged that teddy bear and she went to sleep. And while she was sleeping, along came the 3 bears and they saw that their front door was open. So they went carefully up the porch stairs because someone might be in their home. And when they walked into the front room, Papa Bear said, "Somebody's been sitting in my chair." Mama Bear said, "Someone's been sitting in my chair." Baby Bear said, "Somebody's been sitting in my chair, broken into 1,000,000 toothpicks." And my sister looked at me, "What?" "That's right." And then the 3 bears crept into the kitchen to see if someone was there. And Papa Bear looked at his bowl and he said, "Someone's been eating my porridge." Mama Bear said, "Someone's been eating my porridge." Baby Bear said, "Somebody's been eating my porridge. They ate it all gone." My sister just glared at me. Well, then they crept up the stairs. Someone might be up there. And when they got there and they looked at their beds, Papa Bear said, what did he say? That's right. Mama Bear looked at her bed and she said,
Somebody's been sleeping in my bed.
That's right. Baby Bear looked at his bed and he said, "Oh, somebody's been sleeping in my bed and she's still there. It's a little girl with golden curls." And then I got closer to my sister and I said, "And then, Kimmy, the 3 bears ate Goldilocks." My sister, that's not right. My sister grabbed her long red braid. She said, I said, "Yes, they did, Kimmy. The 3 bears ate that little girl." Yes, they did. And she tasted so good that ever since then, the 3 bears have walked through the darkness of the night, looking for tender, juicy little girls to eat. My sister said, I said, "Yes, they do, Kimmy. And they especially like the ones with golden curls or long red braids." My sister looked at the ends of her braids. She said, I said, "Yes, they do, Kimmy, but you know what? The 3 bears never bother a little girl if she's already asleep in her own bed." Well, you could see the bulb go on dimly over my sister's head. Slowly, she let go of her braids. She breathed in. She said, "I think I'll go get ready for bed now." And zoom, she went down the hall and up those stairs. My brother never woke up. I went up to help her, got her all cleaned up, made sure she had her pajama top on correctly because usually it was backwards or inside out. Got her into the bed, tucked her in nicely. I said, "Kimmy, you want me to tell you a bedtime story?" She said, I went to the door and got ready to flip the switch, and then I thought about it. I asked, "Kimmy, you want me to turn off the light?" I said, "Okay, good night." I checked on my brother. He was still asleep. I went down the stairs feeling very satisfied with myself. I got to the bottom step, and the front door opened. My mama was already back home. But before she could say, "I'm here," I heard my sister's little bare feet hit the floor upstairs. I heard her little feet run across the bedroom floor. I heard her coming down the steps beside me. I felt her bump me and jump in front of me and start telling my mother what I had just done. The problem was, Kimmy was so upset she couldn't get it out. It came out kind of like, my mother said, "What?" What? Lenny told me that the 3 bears ate Goldilocks. My 5'1" mother seemed to grow 7 feet tall. She glared at me with her dark eyes like mine, but hers seemed to be turning into burning coals. I was waiting for steam to come out of her nose and her ears. And she said to me in a voice that had gone bass, "Lynette Jean Cooper." You know when they say your whole name, you're gonna die. I said, "Yes, ma'am." "Did you tell your poor baby sister that the 3 bears ate Goldilocks?" Well, I thought of my pop-pops. I didn't want to say yes. I knew not to say no, so I said, "It's a possibility." Well, my mother started fussing at me, and my sister put the punctuation at the end of every sentence. Holding onto her braid, she just kept saying, "That's right. That's right. Get her, Mommy. Get her. Kill her." And my father walked into this confusion and chaos at the front door. My mother tried to tell him as best she could what my sister had said. My sister emphasized everything. "That's right. That's right. That's right. Get her, Daddy. Get her. Kill her." My mother said, I am too upset to do anything to her. Jake, you're going to have to do something about this. And she took my sister's hand and started walking up the steps with her. My sister held one of my mother's hands and held one of her braids, but she stopped and turned around and she said, Daddy's going to kill you. She was very dramatic. Up the steps they went, and I looked at my father. I didn't like for him to be upset with me. My daddy worked 2 jobs, so I didn't see him as much. And now he had been helping with some kind of funeral arrangements. And I was more upset about my daddy being upset than I was about anything else. My father glared at me with his hazel-colored eyes. He said, you told your baby sister that the 3 bears ate Goldilocks. I said, it's a possibility. Well, he started turning red in the face, clean up to his balding gray head. But his shoulders started shaking. And his cheeks started puffing. You told your sister the 3 bears ate Goldilocks. That's a good one. That's a good one. Ooh, but I got to do something to you, Lenny Jean. I got to do something to you. If I don't do something to you, your mom's going to do something to both of us, you understand? So let me see. Let me see. Go in that kitchen. I said, yes, sir. Sit down at that table. Yes, sir. And finish your homework. Yes, sir. But the whole time you working on your homework, you got to act like I did something to you, you understand? You got to look real pitiful. I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went in and sat down. My father sat across from me, arms folded, glaring at me, but he was helping me with my math. When my mother finally came downstairs, she headed right for the kitchen sink. There were dishes that hadn't been done. Then she stopped like she thought about things, and she turned to my dad. She said, Jake, did you do something to her? He said, I did, Betty, I did. Look. And I turned toward my mother. And when she turned her back at the kitchen sink, I turned toward my father. And he just went. And I thought I got away with something until the weekend came. On Saturday, I was not allowed to go outside and play. I could not play with or call any of my friends. I couldn't read my favorite books. I couldn't watch any of the 3 channels on television or listen to the radio. I had to get my chores done, help my sister with her chores, and play with my sister for the rest of the day, whatever she wanted to play. And on Sunday, I couldn't sit with my friends in church. I had to sit beside my sister with my grandmother and my grandfather instead of with my friends. My daddy couldn't have thought of anything worse. And yes, I did learn something about what I was doing. That didn't stop me. I also learned something about the power of the way you use and choose your words. And it made me a more effective storyteller. I'm one of the top 20 ghost storytellers in the United States. I put that story into one of my books, but I was asking my sister, do you remember when that happened? And she said, I don't think I remember that story. I said, Kimmy, you want me to tell it to you again? And my sister, in her 60s, said, And that's the end of our morning song time together. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we made it. We didn't run right into the breakfast.